Episode number 870, Co-opetition.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California. And I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you and where are you?
I am doing fantastic, and I am in Vail, Colorado this week for the Transformational Leadership Council meeting. I've been a member. This is our 20th anniversary.
Wow.
For TLC, and so I'll be spending some time with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and a number of other top names in the transformational field.
That sounds wonderful.
I don't know why they let me in. I'm a business guy. But they do let thought leaders in, so they brought me in as a thought leader.
Oh, that's good. So can you explain what we're doing here with Co-opetition?
Yeah, Co-opetition is the podcast today, and I have my friend, Dr. Steve Renz. Steve serves as the BNI Global Director of Learning and Development. He is a U.S. Marine veteran and a former BNI Executive Director and co-owner of GovCon Dynamics. Steve holds a PhD in organizational leadership with a focus on entrepreneurial leadership from Regent University and an MBA from St. Leo University. He's a Six Sigma Green Belt. And Graham Wemler, the past CEO, says those kind of belts are great, but they won't defend you in a street fight. But they will help you manage projects effectively. So that's what Six Sigma is all about. He holds a master's certificate in project management at Villanova University, and he served as an adjunct professor in the schools of business and leadership in the MBA and PhD programs at Regent, South University and Carolina University. Steve, welcome to BNI Podcast.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really good to have you on. We have an interesting topic today. It's co-opetition, and sometimes people are not familiar with that term. It's sort of a combination of cooperation and competition, I think. But from your perspective, what is it, Steve?
No, you're exactly right. Co-opetition really deals with organizations that compete but collaborate simultaneously to capture value within their markets.
Yeah, I see that a lot in BNI chapters that have people that, at first glance are competitive, but as you dig deeper, they realize that specialization is the key. Most particularly attorneys, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts, where there are multiple attorneys in a chapter, each with a specialization. And at first glance, you think they compete, but in reality, they cooperate very effectively.
Absolutely, yes. And I think it ties in well with your book, The Third Paradigm, a radical shift toward greater success. And I think this could be a radical shift that could be used by small business owners, large business owners, those that may not view this as a strategic initiative.
Yeah, I totally agree. So why should firms seek cooperative partners?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question. Traditionally in traditional business schools, it teaches, it's competition, it's Sun Tzu, it's art of war and things like that. But, with almost half of all businesses failing within the first 5 years, with economies being a little bit more turbulent, with our customers' expectations changing right now, markets becoming more complex, I think co-opetition offers an avenue that a lot of business owners aren't pursuing, but should. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, for entrepreneurs, small business owners in particular, to really look at this as an effective strategy. I've seen it. I've utilized it in the past for my own success.
Yeah, I have too. And it goes back 41 years for me. When I was a management consultant, I worked with other management consultants who had a different area of expertise. Mine was mostly in strategic planning and HR, and I worked with a number of management consultants that could have been competitive, but their focus was more on finance, which was,
Mhm.
not really my love. And I would work with them, and we had an agreement that I don't take your clients, you don't take my clients, and we worked together in a very cooperative way, although technically we were competition.
Right. My background in it really came from the government contracting perspective when, the government will often mandate co-opetition. They
Mhm.
don't really call it co-opetition, but you are forced, in a lot of regards on large government contracts where through the small business preference programs, the government mandates that a certain portion must go to the small businesses, the women owned, the veteran owned, the hub zones, the 8A candidates. Even the entire 8A program is set up around the mentor protege program to where those large businesses must cooperate with the small businesses to help them succeed.
Well, now there's two things there. I want to dig a little deeper. What did you call it? 8H?
8A, it's actually
8A.
a tax designation, but it's one of the federal government's small business preference programs.
All right, I'm not familiar with that. Can you give us 30 seconds on what that is?
Sure, it's reserved for socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses. So it's traditionally minority-owned businesses who can, the 8A program is incredible because it allows those firms to acquire sole source contracts with the government.
All right, 8A. I had not heard that expression before, and I'm guessing a lot of members maybe haven't as well. So, how do small business owners and entrepreneurs identify with co-opetition and partners in co-opetition?
Yeah, the part of the study that I did with this was a qualitative study, and what really came out with it, and this ties in so well with BNI, and identifying it starts with your relationships. Whether they were personal or professional, most of those that I studied who were successfully engaging in co-opetitive partnerships, they looked to their relationships that they had previously, friends, people that they worked with in the past. But the other thing is they utilized their networks in identifying. When a small business owner is looking, they're asking, "Hey, I need," I'll use an example. We had three members in our region, three BNI members, and it was John, Dallas, and Matt, who were landscapers, all small businesses, relative, startup new businesses. And they would get large contracts or, large projects that they couldn't take on themselves. So they could share equipment between each other. They could share staff. If one person couldn't show up for work, or they were down a lawnmower or two, they would call on the others, and together all of them really grew their business. So I saw that play out. I saw it with our chiropractors who would refer patients depending on the specialty of that chiropractor, or maybe another chiropractor had a certain piece of equipment that would be better for a particular patient. So they were referring patients back and forth amongst each other.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is sort of a co-opetition across chapter lines. Can you
Yes.
give an example of potential co-opetition within a chapter besides attorneys, which was an example I gave?
Yeah, a lot of our tech firms, our IT firms, we have, firms who do software development. Some are focused on cybersecurity. Some are focused on hardware and installation. All of those, it's that power team that comes together to help not only support each other's businesses, but to satisfy the requirements of the customer.
The first one I saw in BNI was life insurance and property casualty insurance, because the P&C agents often do life, but they work with a life agent very effectively. And that was the first co-opetition that I saw work in BNI literally 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
So we're coming up on time. Give me some of the qualities that are sought in co-opetition and partnerships.
Yeah, the number one quality, and I think you mentioned this, it was trust.
Yeah.
Because your reputations are linked. But you also have to have those proven abilities. If you're going to enter into a co-opetitive partnership, the trust has to be there, but they've got to be able to perform and execute to your standards and really the standards of the customer. And then there's also that mutuality. It helps when they have a shared culture, shared values, that there's mutual respect. But there's also has to be that expectation of reciprocity, that you're going to work together to help each other, that it's not just going to be a one-sided relationship.
Yeah, of course. Are there any phases that you would identify?
Yeah, I think it's really similar to what we call VCP, is going through these phases, and it's an initiation phase, is what I call it. It's when you're first starting to feel out your potential competitive partner. You're looking at your internal gaps. You're looking at what this potential partner can bring to the table, and it starts with the communication process and an assessment of their capabilities. And here's where you just kind of start as your opening discussions of forming those expectations. Then it moves into that development phase where now we start establishing, what is this trust and commitment level we're gonna engage in? How are we going to work together? We need to provide some feedback. And what was found in the study is, in this phase, if it was a personal relationship in the beginning, it starts developing into a more of a professional relationship. If it started as a professional relationship, it really starts developing into a more personal relationship. And then probably one of the most important phases that came out of this study was the assessment phase. As you're going along, you're working together. This is where we need to start questioning, are we getting the value out of this relationship that we need to? Is it time for improvement? Is it time to separate, or should we continue it? But then the next most important phase is that maintenance phase. It's continued communication, identifying additional opportunities for each other, and that relationship continues to develop if you determine that it is profitable and we should engage further.
Well, we're out of time, Steve. Any last thought before I turn it back over to Priscilla?
No, I highly recommend, as a business strategy, really take a serious look at co-opetition, especially as a small business, a startup business. If you're entrepreneurially oriented, I think co-opetition provides an avenue for you to really grow and develop.
Yeah, this is really an abundance mentality perspective as opposed to a scarcity mentality. And I see that almost always work better within BNI. Dr. Steve Renz, thank you so much for being on BNI Podcast, and thank you for everything you do for BNI.
Thank you, Ivan. I really appreciate it.
Priscilla, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for this week. Thank you both for such great information. This podcast is sponsored by MeisnerAudioprograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material that's available to you at MeisnerAudioprograms.com, and then use the promo code IVAN50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI Podcast.